The room fell silent for a split second, then everything exploded. The Attorney General's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. She wasn't there to answer questions, she was there to fight. And the moment a senator mentioned the dinner tied to those controversial digital coins, it turned into a political storm that no one saw coming. It started as a simple budget hearing, routine, quiet, forgettable. But in less than a minute, it became one of the most heated exchanges in Washington this year. The senator asked about one thing: transparency. What he got instead was deflection, denial, and a furious defense that raised more questions than it answered.
When the president held his dinner for 220 individuals who purchased the most of his meme coins, were there foreign interests attending that dinner?
Senator, we're here to talk about the Department of Justice and my budget for the upcoming year. I would think that you would want to talk about the leader of the Sinaloa cartel who was living in Oregon, one of the top leaders. I would think that that's what you would want to talk about with me. When we captured him, he had $3 million cash in his home.
Attorney General, I know that you avoided the same question on the House side, but what we know is that many folks who attended this dinner were buying those coins because they wanted to influence U.S. policy. We had Mr. Javier Selgas, the head of Freight Technology, Inc., who said, I bought $2 million of these coins. I plan to buy $20 million because I want a favor from the president to change the policy regarding freight from Mexico to the United States. This solicitation of investments in his personal product, his meme coin, led to many people who were coming from foreign countries attending that dinner. Don't you think the American people have a right to know? And you said yourself you're very concerned about foreign influence on our government.
Senator, it is wildly offensive that you would accuse President Trump of not protecting American interest in our country when he is the president that has shut down our borders, unlike Joe Biden. President Trump has done everything to make America safe, and you asked me the question, and keep America safe.
Do you
and
know
you're trying to play a gotcha question at a budget hearing when you have murders left and right in your state, violent crimes, and we are doing everything we can to help your liberal state. Whether you're liberal or not, we're going to do everything we can to help the citizens of your state, and you're trying to avoid that because you're trying to play a gotcha question with the President of the United States, and it's not going to work. We're here to talk about our budget for public safety.
I do believe that as the leader of the Department of Justice, you should be concerned about foreign influence. There was obviously a lot of foreign influence and individuals who said they were there for that reason. And so will you appoint a special investigator to make sure that that foreign influence does not affect the policies of the United States of America?
I'm not going to tell you what I will or will not do, other than I will do everything to keep the people of your state safe, even though you don't want to talk about anything to do with your state because of the crime in your state. You also voted no on the Laken-Riley Act. We are doing everything we can to protect the citizens of this country. You also said that President Trump encouraged protest. It was the opposite. He's done everything he can to keep us safe, and he will continue to, as well as the Department of Justice.
It speaks volumes that you won't answer the question about transparency when the president is asking people to invest in his company and his products, and that foreigners are attending these events. I think transparency would be appropriate. Are you going to recommend any ethics guidelines to make sure that foreign influence does not find its way in through the doors of the White House?
How do you characterize foreigners, the illegal aliens that have flowed into our country? Is that who you're talking about? You don't want to talk about them. You don't want to talk about the crime that has gone rampant throughout this country and your state.
Well, you know, these hearings are a chance for us to ask questions, and I assure you I'm engaged in national security in many, many ways. But this also I am concerned about, and let me turn to a different piece of the puzzle, because the president also has another cryptocurrency called USD1. It is a stable coin. There was a request by UAE to produce AI chips that would go to UAE. The National Security Advisor of UAE is also the CEO of MGX. So after that request for those chips occurred, MGX then said, we will buy 2 billion, billion with a B, of the president's coins, and then the president went to the Middle East and said, we will get you those AI chips. Does this sequence of events in which a foreign government asked for a big favor, and we had previously banned these chips to UAE because of the national security concerns. Then they buy $2 billion of the president's coins, and then the president goes to the Middle East and says, we will provide those chips. Does that sequence of events concern you about foreign influence on the United States of America?
The foreign influence on America that I would be concerned about if I were you was the Mexican national that resided in Oregon, who we just arrested, who had 384 pounds of methamphetamine. The foreign individual who I would be concerned about if I were a senator from Oregon is the Honduran drug trafficker who was residing in Portland for distributing fentanyl. The foreign national I would be concerned about if I was a Portland senator, an Oregon senator, is a Mexican national leader of a drug trafficking ring. Another one, fentanyl, firearms, fatal overdoses, all in your state.
You have made your point.
57,700 fentanyl pills and stolen firearms in Oregon. That's what we should work together on, not gotcha questions during a budget hearing.
Let me recognize Senator Merkley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Attorney General certainly has made the point that she's very concerned about issues that I'm concerned about as well regarding the security of this country. But let the record note that in terms of foreign influence and the sale of foreign influence through the president's coins, she absolutely refuses to respond and instead turns to a whole list of different topics. I think it's important for the leader of the Justice Department of the United States to be very concerned about foreign influence, and I encourage you to take on that topic and not consider it an offense that those of us who are concerned here, Democrats and Republicans, want Americans to make American decisions, not foreign influence being bought through crypto coins.
Senator Murkowski.
Chairman.
People watching could feel it, the tension, the unease, the sense that something wasn't right. Why was a straightforward question about possible foreign influence turning into a shouting match about crime statistics and border walls? Why was every attempt to talk about ethics being met with outrage? It was as if the walls of accountability had been replaced by walls of noise. But here's where it all began. A few weeks earlier, a high-profile dinner took place at a private resort. It wasn't an official event. It wasn't about policy or diplomacy. It was about money, digital money. The top 200 buyers of a certain new cryptocurrency, all invited to dine with the most powerful man in the country. Investors who'd spent millions on a meme coin connected to the president's brand gathered in one room, hoping for a handshake, a photo, maybe even a promise. At first it sounded harmless until reports started surfacing about who some of those investors were. Businessmen with deep ties to foreign industries. Executives from companies that rely on U.S. trade deals, and in at least one case, individuals connected to governments that had spent years lobbying for American technology they weren't supposed to have. That's when the alarms started ringing. When the hearing began, the senator went straight to the point. Were there foreign interests at that dinner, he asked. That's all. No accusation, no speech, just a question meant to clarify what kind of vetting, if any, was done before letting foreign investors buy access to power. But the Attorney General wasn't having it. Her expression hardened, and the room tensed as she shot back, calling the question wildly offensive. She didn't deny that the dinner took place. She didn't confirm who was there. Instead, she launched into a fiery defense, insisting that the administration had done more for national safety than anyone else. Her tone sharpened with every word. She wasn't answering, she was attacking. And this wasn't just political theater. It was a strategy, one that turned a question about influence into a monologue about border walls and violent crime. She accused the senator of playing gotcha politics, of ignoring the real issues. The irony was almost painful. The real issue was sitting right in front of her: money, influence, and access, and she refused to look at it. The senator tried again, calmly, methodically. He brought up the evidence. Among the guests at that dinner was Javar Selgas, a tech executive who openly admitted to purchasing millions in those coins because he wanted a policy change on freight regulations between Mexico and the U.S. His words were public record. I plan to buy 20 million more because I want a favor from the president. That wasn't rumor, it was documented. Yet even then the Attorney General didn't respond. She pivoted again, this time to local crime. You have murders left and right in your state, she snapped. We're doing everything we can to help your liberal state. Viewers online started to notice the pattern. Every time the question came back to the coins, she shifted the topic somewhere else. Oregon, fentanyl, anything but the dinner. But the senator didn't let go. He reminded her that she had avoided the exact same question days earlier in the House hearing. He pointed out that multiple foreign individuals admitted to attending the event precisely because they thought it would help them gain influence. Don't you think the American people have a right to know? He pressed. That's when she snapped again, her tone rising. It is wildly offensive that you would accuse the president of not protecting American interests. The deflection was complete. The issue of ethics had now become a loyalty test. The more she dodged, the clearer the pattern became. Transparency wasn't the goal, defense was. The senator then shifted gears, moving from the personal to the systemic. Will you appoint a special investigator? He asked. The goal was to find out whether any foreign transactions connected to those coins might have influenced policy. But her response was chilling in its simplicity. I will do everything to keep the people of your state safe. No mention of investigation. No mention of influence, just another pivot to local crime, another swing away from the question that mattered. The senator didn't flinch. It speaks volumes, he said, that you won't answer questions about transparency while the president asks people to invest in his personal products. He asked if she would recommend any new ethics guidelines to ensure foreign investors couldn't buy access again. That's when she fired back with something that left the room stunned. How do you characterize foreigners? She asked. The illegal aliens that have flowed into our country. Is that who you're talking about? The deflection had turned into distortion. A question about foreign government influence was twisted into an argument about immigration. It was rhetorical judo, turning scrutiny into outrage. The senator stayed calm. He knew where he was going next. This isn't about border crossings, he said. This is about national security. Then he dropped the real bombshell, the UAE connection. He explained that months before the dinner, the United Arab Emirates had requested U.S. approval to acquire advanced AI chips, a request previously denied for national security reasons. But shortly after that request, a UAE-based company called MGX, whose CEO also happens to be the nation's security advisor, purchased $2 billion worth of the president's cryptocurrency. $2 billion, with a B. Then weeks later, the president visited the Middle East and announced those AI chips would indeed be sent to the UAE. The timing was impossible to ignore. Does that sequence of events concern you? The senator asked. The room fell silent. The attorney general didn't answer. Instead, she listed off drug busts in Oregon, 384 pounds of meth, 57,700 fentanyl pills, firearm seizures. The audience watched in disbelief. She was building a wall of statistics to hide behind, but everyone could see through it. The senator interrupted softly. You have made your point. And then he said what everyone was thinking. Let the record note, he began, that in terms of foreign influence and the sale of foreign influence through these coins, she absolutely refuses to respond. His words cut cleanly through the noise. It's important for the leader of the Justice Department to be concerned about foreign influence. We want Americans making American decisions, not decisions bought by foreign investors through digital currency. That's when the tone shifted. The drama gave way to clarity. The room, the viewers, everyone watching could see the deeper problem. Accountability versus loyalty. Every time transparency was requested, it was treated as an attack. And that's how influence hides, in the shadows of outrage. Because this wasn't just about coins or one dinner. It was about something much bigger. The modern way power is purchased. For decades, influence meant lobbying, donations, corporate sponsorships. Now it's tokens, investments, digital assets that cross borders without scrutiny, money that moves faster than laws can catch it. What the senator exposed wasn't just a scandal, it was a warning. A reminder that influence doesn't always look like corruption. Sometimes it looks like innovation. But when foreign governments and corporate giants can buy millions in coins tied to an administration, and policy changes follow shortly after, it's not innovation anymore, it's infiltration. And yet what made this exchange so powerful wasn't just the facts, it was the contrast. On one side, a lawmaker calmly demanding answers, framing each question like a chess move. On the other, an official exploding with anger, filling the silence where truth should have been with emotional distraction. Viewers could feel it, the frustration of watching someone dodge the very responsibility their position demands. That's what made the hearing unforgettable. Every deflection became its own confession. Every refusal to answer said more than a direct admission ever could. The louder she got, the clearer it became that transparency wasn't coming. But here's the thing, this story isn't isolated. It's part of a growing trend, power being traded through coded currencies, influence flowing through wallets instead of words, and accountability slipping through the cracks of digital transactions. The senator's questions weren't just about one man's dinner. They were about whether the law can keep up with the speed of money in the digital age. Think about it, billions of dollars changing hands in tokens that can't be traced, investors that can't be easily vetted, and foreign actors who can now participate in America's financial ecosystem under the guise of innovation. It's no longer about envelopes of cash or campaign donations, it's about blockchain transactions that vanish the moment you look for them. And that's what makes this hearing matter. Because what looks like a shouting match in Congress might actually be a preview of something much bigger, how the next decade of political influence will unfold. The senator's insistence wasn't about scoring points, it was about sounding an alarm. When leaders refuse to discuss transparency, when questions about ethics are met with personal attacks, democracy starts to dim. It's not about partisanship, it's about protection. And that's why this confrontation hit a nerve with so many people. It exposed how fragile accountability becomes when power and profit share the same dinner table. What's haunting is how familiar this pattern feels. History repeats itself, just with different tools. Once it was land, then oil, then lobbying, and now crypto. The medium changes, but the motive never does. Access, influence, control. Every generation has its own version of power being bought, and this hearing might just be the first major battle of the next one. The takeaway here isn't about political sides, it's about the questions we stop asking when someone shouts loud enough to drown them out. It's about understanding how influence operates when it hides behind new technology, and it's about realizing that silence, or deflection, is never just noise, it's strategy. The senator didn't win a headline that day, but he did something more important. He left a trail of questions that no one can easily erase. Questions about money, influence, and the new ways democracy can be bought, quietly, invisibly, one coin at a time. And that's the real story. Not who shouted the loudest, but who kept asking when it mattered most. Because accountability doesn't vanish when it's ignored. It lingers in hearings, in transcripts, in the minds of people who pay attention. And those people, they're the reason these hearings exist in the first place. So if you want to understand these confrontations beyond the headlines, if you want to see how power, money, and influence really work in today's America, stick around, subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us every week as we break down the moments that matter, the stories others gloss over, and the questions that refuse to go away. Because in a world this complex, staying informed isn't just smart, it's powerful.